Welcome back to this special edition of NCBA's Cattleman to Cattleman. This week we're sitting down with the experts from Land O'Lakes Purina Feed, and we've got a great discussion going about the importance of a starting program. So let's talk a little bit about the specifics of a successful program. Ted, I want to start with you. What do you tell a producer who says, do I really need a starting program? Never used it before. Why would I need one now?
A good starting program gets those calves off to a good start, is going to minimize any problems you're going to have with the calf. Not only increasing gain is one thing, but more importantly, it's going to increase their overall health, have less sickness, less treatments, just the labor and treatment cost alone of treating that calf. Plus, when you go back to a lot of the original data that shows the value lost when that calf gets sick for everybody along through the chain, a good starting program was going to really minimize that all the way through the entire system.
Dr. Helt, with today's prices, will a preconditioning program really pencil out?
When we look at the economics right now, it sure appears that those programs can work, but we have to remember that a preconditioning program is just not the feed component. Preconditioning is the health component, the veterinary component. It sure looks like they can work, but what we'll do in most situations, we've got a colleague, Dr. Drew Shane, that keeps a database for us with a lot of our products and programs that we use. And so we'll go into that database and find a like set of cattle with the performance expectations that we're looking for and plug the current numbers in and try to make sure and fine-tune that program and prove that those preconditioning programs can work. And so the short answer is yes, but we've sure got numbers to back up what we're trying to do and go through that on an individual basis with those ranchers.
Dr. Scott, what about commodities? I mean, can we incorporate some commodities into this feeding program to kind of cheapen up our costs?
Well, we can. The thing we have to remember is that cattle are like people. You know, we need a balanced diet. We don't want our kids just to eat broccoli, and some of our kids won't even eat broccoli. But we have to look at that for cattle too, because if I have something like distiller's grains or soybean hulls, they are an ingredient, and what we do is we take ingredients and make a balanced feed out of that. And then when we give this to cattle, then it does more than what's intended. So for example, with Precon 5, what we're doing with it is offering it along with hay or pasture, and it greatly stimulates the intake and digestion of the hay. So cattle gain more weight and are better able to fight off any challenges they might have with sickness because they're actually gaining more weight. So we've been able to increase gain with that product, the same fed rate, 5 pounds versus 5 pounds. We've increased gain in our research by over a pound a day. And so some people look at cost as how much I pay for something, but we've got to look at cost of gain also. And if we double the average daily gain, you basically are cutting your cost of gain in half. So it's a big deal to have a balanced diet. And commodities are not balanced. I mean, they're lacking not only in the quantity of vitamins and minerals, but also the ratio. So they're not perfect. They can help you to cheapen things up, but you're going to sacrifice too on what you get out of them.
Well, Ted, I want to get your perspective on this cost issue. I mean, money's tight, resources are tight, a lot more operating capital to just manage any kind of beef cattle operation today. Can a person really afford to spend this extra money on a preconditioning program?
If you look at the cost of feed, all feeds, whether it's ingredients, whether it's just operating costs, and the value of the calves, I don't think you can afford not to have a good weaning and starting program, because you're just leaving too much on the table with lost dollars. A lot of it goes back to health. If we keep those calves healthy, they're going to be gaining. If we have to have a bunch of treatment costs, or if we lose a couple, that dead calf, his value goes way down. So if we're going to maximize value, we need to get those calves up and running and get them gaining and get them healthy, and then we can move on to our other programs. We've got a wide range of products available so that we can fit it specifically to that producer's needs. Everywhere from, if a producer has a lot of investment in facilities and they've got a weaning program that they have, every calf that's weaned needs to have that available for tub. From the standpoint of, we know that all calves don't go right to the bunk. but they will go and lick on that tub, get some sugars from the molasses to help the rumen bugs like Dr. Scott talked about, and then get the vitamins and minerals to help build that immune system. One of the best things for that calf to get him over his stresses that we talked about earlier is a full belly. And once he gets a full belly, he doesn't miss mama near as much, and he kind of gets the thought, maybe I can do this and I'll actually live. So that the Avela-4 tubs are a good place to start. And then we just build from there depending on the goals of the producer. We have the Precon 5 program that we introduced last year, which is a 5-pound feeding product Dr. Scott talked about. It is the most palatable feed we have today. And that was one of the surprises because Dr. Scott and company have done research for 30 years, and we compared that with Precon receiving chow, which had been a standard for almost 40 years. The consumption was higher or they preferred it, the Precon 5. So we've got a very palatable feed the calves can use, and then it balances the rumen so that the calves can use the forages and other resources available at the ranch.
9 out of 10 calves surveyed preferred that, right?
That's what we got, yeah.
Dr. Scott, I want to get back to you. What about size of operation? I know in some cases feeding programs, vaccination programs, et cetera, work better for larger or smaller operations. Is there some size considerations we should keep in mind as we determine whether or not this kind of program is right for us?
Yeah, well, I think the thing that we do a good job of at the local level, through the help of our consultants like Dr. Helt, is trying to figure out what does that cattleman need. Because everybody's different. You know, you got the very large ranches, 10,000 head, and when you've got people with 10 head, can they use the same product? In some cases you can, particularly if it's something that you're hand feeding like the Precon 5 or our Wind and Rain Avela-4 tub, which fits all those scenarios. And we've got feed yards that are using the Avela-4 tub, big ranches that use the Precon 5, and then our smaller operations do it too. But the facilities that each location has is critical in trying to have the best fit for what kind of options we have.
Dr. Held, is there anything else beyond the starter feed that I should be considering to make sure that those calves get off to a good start?
The next thing we really need to look at, once we've kind of got the feed program in line, is the management component that goes along with our weaning programs. The people, who's devoted to do what. I think that needs to be outlined very clearly. The water, Ted talked about water before, that you know, that's one of the most often overlooked pieces, and so we need to consider water. We need to look at potentially what health problems we do have, and some of our feeds can come with medication options. AS700, for example, or Dequinate for coccidiosis. So do we have a respiratory problem? Do we have a coccidiosis problem? How am I going to fix that and put that into the feed program? So we kind of need to fine-tune those from a management standpoint, from a feed additive standpoint, to make those programs as good as they can be.
Ted, what kind of tips would you give our viewers for managing cattle on these kind of starting programs?
Well, I think we're all creatures of habit. One of the things we should do is every year look at our starting program. Is it going to fit for what we have available this year? If we have a lot of high quality forages and we want to use up those forages, then we would use the Avela-4 Precon 5 type program. If you go the other extreme and we've had a dry summer and we need to conserve forages for the mama cows, then we would want to use the AccuRation starter program so that the calves still get as good a gain as we can get, and we're conserving forages for the cows. So I think, you know, my best weaning tip is let's look at what we have available and see what fits best for your operation for this year. And we tend to get locked into, we wean October 15th every year and we feed them Precon for 10 days and go on to the grower's ration. I think we're missing the boat when we do that. We need to really look every year and see what is available and then use the program that fits best for this year.
Dr. Helt, you're with producers every day, and I'm sure you hear this objection, but the fundamental question again is this upfront cost. I mean, let's be honest, it costs some money to do this kind of preconditioning program that we're talking about. What kind of peace of mind can producers have that they will actually generate a positive return on investment, even though the upfront cost may be a little more than they're used to spending?
I think what we need to do is have that serious conversation with the ranch and figure out what the ranch budget is for these weaning programs. How much can they spend, and then determine what kind of return we need on that. I know cattle prices are high, feed prices are high, but we can still put money into these cattle and get a return on them. And as I said earlier, I think if we can delve into our database and pull out historical numbers and use the local ranch input cost and their ranch budget, I think we can come up with a pretty good peace of mind number to say there's a return on investment for doing this in these weaning programs, especially this year.